People without shame. What was your biggest I just booked my one-way pass to heck moment? The police busted a party I was throwing and I answered the door in a wheelchair to make the officers feel uncomfortable enough to not enter the house. My legs work fine. In 8th grade a friend came into school seeming a bit upset, but I couldn't tell if he actually was or was just in one of those moods 8th graders get in, so I said, "What's the matter, your dog die? Cheer up, you can guess the rest." In high school I was in cross country, pretty much long distance running. Each race was about 3 miles long. On this particular day I was about 2 miles in and I was doing alright, on pace to beat my own personal record. The run was pretty flat except for this one part where it went downhill for a good bit. As I was making my way down the hill I saw someone in front of me in a wheelchair fall over. They were towards the bottom. As soon as that happened, a couple of people who were in front of the guy in the wheelchair stopped and turned around to help the guy up. The other runners helping this guy in the wheelchair were all in my path, so I could either stop and help out or I could keep going and beat my PR. There's no shame in my game, so I jumped over the wheelchair and kept going. There was a boo or two and even some laughs, but I did beat my PR and I got a top 20 finish. Probably not worth it, but I'll see you in heck. As a person who also did cross country, I wouldn't have even considered it. On a flat course that is a downhill, very few things would have stopped me. My son was in grade 1 and liked to wear pink socks. While I was waiting to pick him up, one of his little friends comes by. "Do you know, your son wears pink socks like a girl?" I replied his grandmother gave him those socks because she loves him very much. Then I cocked my head and made eye contact. "Doesn't your grandmother give you socks?" He muttered no. I said huh and looked at him with deep pity, then walked away. You crushed his soul. Very nice. Went with my whole, very Catholic, family, including grandma, to see the Passion of the Christ. My brother and I were both a little fidgety and bored for most of it. That was not the attitude of anyone else in this particular theater. For those who haven't seen it, spoiler alert, Jesus dies and is put in a tomb. The screen fades to black. The women behind us start clapping. Frantic, excited clapping. And then the scene fades back in, and there is another whole 2 minutes to the movie, making it seem like the women were applauding the death of Jesus, and not the film itself. My brother, loudly, whispers to me, "Well, they are going to heck." I could not stop laughing. Tears running down my face. Cannot catch my breath, snorting, barking laughter. And then the movie ended. The lights come up in the theater, and I look like I am laughing at the religious torture we just sat through. Looks like it is me that's going to heck. When my girlfriend and I first got together, we were trying to figure out a movie to watch. My girlfriend loves horror, and we hadn't had an opportunity to play any of the Silent Hill games together yet, so I suggested the movie to her. I had seen it once, and while it wasn't perfect, I remember the atmosphere being pretty spot on, so she'd get an idea of what the games were like. Kind of like trying to sell it to her. Worthy of note is that my girlfriend is a burn survivor. When she was around 2, she was in a house fire, burned around 80% of her body. The entirety of the Silent Hill movie is about burning a little freaking girl. I felt like such an butthole by the end of it. Also, maybe about a year later, we played the first game, and the first game is nowhere near as overt about it. Like, yeah, Lesser is still burned and that's a plot point, but they don't make it out to be freaking torture like the movie did. JFC find an excuse to stop watching it part way through. Fake a seizure. Start a fight. Freaking anything. Once in high school, a girl in a power wheelchair ran over my foot, and I screamed, "Goddamn Hot Wheels, move it to the fast lane," and got in school suspension for 2 weeks. Okay, but that's also the funniest insult I've ever heard, and I would have likely ended up in a wheelchair too if I heard someone say that in real life. Beat a mentally disabled kid up in a church our family were guests at in the middle of a sermon. I was 12 or 13. I didn't understand what mentally disabled was. He looked normal to me. I was just peed the kid wiping boogers on my back. Warned him twice. Did it again, so I hit him. The pastor waded in to break it up. Known where I'm headed for 30 years now. My friend has a giant bear stuffed animal that's basically with her at all times in her dorm room. She went to an exam one day and my friend hung the bear from the ceiling in her dorm room. She came back from her exam all upset BC she didn't do that well and came back to her dorm room to that. Yeah, he's going to heck. Oh, and there was a note on the bear that said, IDK about you but I just couldn't bear it anymore. Now do it with a Kermit the Frog doll and have the note say, it's not easy being green. Well, this was while I was working as an electrician. I was driving my service truck into a back alley and saw a bunch of young kids, maybe 12ish. One of them makes eye contact and for whatever reason I just maintained it as I drove by, dimly aware of running over something small. Then after I passed I realized I ran over his freaking bike. I looked the kid straight in the eye while I crushed what I assume is only means transportation. I didn't stop. I was late for a service call. I saw the guy in a wheelchair lose traction and slip in a puddle, then literally come sliding out of his chair when he hit the ground. I was watching from a distance and other people got to him right off the bat, but I was hiding my face in my shirt and laughing my butt off. There are an abnormally large number of wheelchair falling out of wheelchair related stories in this thread. It was a cold winter day, and it was my second time circling the block looking for a parking space on the street. On the icy sidewalk, I see an elderly woman who is easily in her 90s. She slips on the ice and falls hard on her back right beside me. At the same time a car 10 meters away pulls out. She made direct eye contact with me, lying in the snow. I mouthed I'm sorry, and pulled ahead into the available spot. By the time I ran back to help, there were 2 other people assisting and she didn't look like she wanted me there anyway at that point. TLDR. I left an old lady on the ground to get a primo parking spot. Honestly, maybe I am a butthole. I think it's better you parked and went to help than leaving your car in an aisle. Was a chaperone for my son's kindergarten field trip. I am rarely the chaperone. During the lunch picnic I saw another kid just smacking my kid over and over again across the face. But because my son had gotten in trouble in preschool for fighting, he just took it because he didn't want to get in trouble. I flew across the picnic, stooped down and got right in that kid's face and told that kid if he ever laid a hand on my son again it would be the last thing he ever did. And if he thought I didn't mean it, I dared him to try it. Not my best moment, but he never touched my kid again. In fact, my son said he is very nice to him now. Go figure. I don't know how you said it, but I'd have done the same thing. Also, tell your kid that hitting back is not the same thing as hitting first. It'll help him a lot. Poor guy. A guy I used to work with and I were stocking furniture and I asked him for a team lift on a relatively light item. He's like, WTF do you need the help for? I told him I threw my back out when I jumped his mother last night. He gets legit sad and says she's dead. So I just went all in and told him I threw it out when I dug her up. Oh my freaking god. Talk about doubling down. A kid splashed my 2-year-old in the baby section of the water park. This was a splash pad with those little jets that shoot water straight up. Right before one next to me went off I stretched, angling my hand in such a way that the kid got a full shot to the face. Dang. Passive aggressive towards a toddler. I was walking to my friend's house many years ago. As I turned the corner there was this disabled girl in a wheelchair. Only she wasn't technically in the wheelchair. She was in fact lying face first on the ground. She was just staring at me. She wasn't screaming or in pain nor did she ask for help. She was, from what I could tell, around 15 or 16 years old. There was no one else around. I stood there contemplating whether to help her or not. I was weighing up the pros and cons in my head. Pro, helping people is nice. Con, what if someone thinks I'm attacking her? Pro, what if she can't speak and needs my help? Con, what if it's a sting and I end up on how to catch a disabled predator? A few more pros and cons fly through my mind and then I realize that I haven't moved and I've just been staring at this kid on the ground for the last 3 minutes. So I had no option but to say sorry and just run as fast as I could away. Heck awaits. A few more pros and cons fly through my mind and then I realize that I haven't moved and I've just been staring at this kid on the ground for the last 3 minutes. Hep, I guess it's not that big of a deal if at the end you decided to help he. So I had no option but to say sorry and just run as fast as I could away. You're going to heck. An older friend of mine announced to our group that his grandfather had just died. He wasn't particularly upset since they'd seen it coming for some time. But that doesn't excuse my next comment. Haha, you probably killed him, didn't you? I don't know what I was thinking. I was in my mid-teenage years and was always trying to be the class clown, but that is just inexcusable. And only after the other 3-4 people in the room gasped and stared at me did I realize the cosmic idiocy of what I just said. I slapped my hands over my mouth and apologized profusely. Luckily the guy understood I was just being an idiot and said it was fine. We're still in touch to this day. This anecdote sums up teenage awkwardness. I was watching the news and saw that church bus had crashed and children on that bus had died. I commented that Jesus did not take the wheel. Along with booking my one-way pass to heck, I got some groans and gasps from my co-workers in the break room. And I'm going to heck for laughing. I just got off work and I was shopping when I heard this guy making obnoxious yelling noises. I got annoyed so I yelled, "Shut the frick up," and turned around. I thought it was just some loud butt redneck. It was a very mentally disabled man in a wheelchair. I felt so bad I cried. That was awful. I did something similar. I was trying to get down an aisle in a store that was being blocked by a young man and his mom. I said excuse me several times. They didn't respond, so I tapped him on the shoulder with a package of toilet paper. The cart was between us and I couldn't get around it. He was disabled. My friend still reminds me of the time I got the Downs kid. I was working on a group project in college and we were having trouble coming up with a time we could all do with classes and work schedules. At one point a day is mentioned where myself and a second person in the group days we'd prefer not because we have standing friend groups that meet on that day and didn't want to give it up for a series of weeks for the project. Most people were cool, but this one girl starts laying this huge guilt trip about how we suck for prioritizing friends over grades and we should just cancel on our friends. We toss times around a bit longer and come up with late Sunday morning, except the uptight chick from before who says Sundays are out because she does stuff for her church all day and it's her day for God. I was being mouthy and replied, "Well crap. If you're gonna chill with your imaginary friend all day you certainly can't get on us about hanging out with people that are real." She didn't think it was funny. Most of the rest of the group had to hide a laugh though. Made me laugh. TL. Doctor. I used a disabled bathroom stall. Guy in electric wheelchair came in, so I pretended to be handicapped when I walked out. Details. Was camping with friends and came into town to grab socks because I only brought 3 pairs and they had gotten wet. Went to Walmart and straight to the bathroom in the back of the store. Someone had trashed the small stall, so I went in the big one. I had eaten nothing but Cliff Bars for like 3 days and I was stopped up. It hurt and I was in tears pushing out what felt like a small child. Cue electric wheelchair. It's red. I see it roll up to the stall. He jiggles the door, sighs and grunts, then backs in neatly near the trash can to wait it out. I'm frozen. What do I do? Do I tell him sorry? It's gonna be a minute? I don't know. So I stay there, silently crying, until I am done. I took 10 minutes to wipe, trying to be as quiet as possible. His caretaker comes in and goes, "Oh, someone's in the wheelchair." Guy grunts. 5 minutes later, he leaves and, presumably, goes to the other bathroom. Finally, I open the stall, wash my hands, and pretend to have cerebral palsy or something as I walk out. He sees me. Wheelchair guy knows. Then, my friends see me and ask why I am walking like an idiot in front of him. My heart sank that day. Reminds me of the IT Crowd episode. We left a girl in a wheelchair at a pizza place at 3 AM in downtown DC on Pride weekend. TBH, it was a super weird situation. She asked for our help to get to a pizza place where she could wait for the metro to open up. Opens around 7 AM. We said sure. On the way to the pizza place she overshared quite a bit about her life, making most of us very uncomfortable. Get to the pizza place. Call the Uber. Go outside to wait. She rolls up and starts talking about how her mom is coming to pick her up. Okay, cool. Good to know she's getting home safe. Uber comes. She becomes extremely mad that we're abandoning her, that we won't take her back to our apartment in the opposite direction of her house, that we're saying neither her nor the wheelchair will fit in the Uber. Basically tries to guilt us into giving her a place to stay for the night. Stands up out of the wheelchair to yell at us. We shut the door in her face. The going to heck part? My friend videotaped the whole thing with Hey There Delilah playing in the background and it's genuinely hilarious. Still feel bad about the whole situation. Hope she got home okay. Not sure what her plan was, but still. I once asked a blind man if I could help him across the street as traffic light was changing. He began a tirade of screaming, waving his cane and shouting obscenities at me. My only defense was to run away, like I kept running a city block away. Till this day, I'm afraid to offer help to blind people. I will go out of my way to avoid them. I'm not proud. Driving in a snowstorm, I pull up to a red light and notice a car skidded off into the ditch. The guy is standing there on the side of the road staring right at me, probably wanting me to help. It was late at night and no other cars on the road. The lights turned green and I drove off. I was tired and wanted to sleep. Hopefully he was okay. I'd gone to see The Golden Compass when it just came out, and of course the whole theater is packed with moms and their kids. Movie was bad. Tried to make it like Chronicles of Narnia and I was just so peed by the end of the thing. If you haven't read the book, it has a super downer ending, but the movie gave it a very feel good, can't wait to continue our adventure ending. Credits roll. Moms and their kids are starting to gather their things and head out, and I stand up and shout, that's not how it ends. Roger dies. I didn't stick around long enough to face the repercussions, and neither did the franchise. I shouldn't have read this when I was in the middle of reading the first book in the book series. Now I have spoilers that I don't know what to do with and it is so frustrating. Late to the thread, but my best friend and I once stole holy water from a Catholic church to put in our bong to smoke out of. I swear we got higher. Father, Son, and holy smokes. When I was younger, 2nd grade, I was pulled into the nurse's office for a lice check. Turns out I had lice. She told me to get my older brother, 6th grade, and wait for our parents. Instead of me doing this quietly, I decided I'd run down the hall, slid past the classroom door and yell, "We've got lice." That's actually rather funny. Maybe it panicked all the parents. I haven't thought about this in decades. I'm in Catholic grade school, and the entire class is in church for whatever special day. It was long ago. I'm talking to a friend sitting nearby when I hear in a Scottish accent behind me, "Quiet down now." Somehow in my head I decided the voice was another close friend merely mimicking our school principal, Sister Angela. I turn around and say, shut up, right into Sister Angela's face. I will never forget her look of surprise. I watched in horror as she went to consult a nearby priest. I never heard anything about it again, as I think they came to the conclusion that it simply had to be some kind of misunderstanding. Trying not to cry with laughter at work after reading this. I was at a red light alone, and this guy with Down syndrome was at the crosswalk waiting. His light was green, and he proceeded to sprint as fast as possible across the street where I sat motionless and no other cars were coming. His run was unique. There was such urgency, and it would appear he had 2 different length legs or something with the way he ran. Arms straight up in the air. He was not fast, though I'm sure he thought he was shredding it. Once he got across the street and back on the sidewalk, he more or less just walked normally again. I know I'm going to heck for how hard I laughed at that. When I was 21, we were at a house party and I locked a bike lock around a passed out guy's neck downstairs that everyone knew used to beat up his girlfriends. When we left, I threw the keys in a bush about 3 blocks down the road. Nobody knew I did it, and I didn't tell anyone for years. I have no idea how he got it off. For all I know, he's still walking around with it on. 13 years later. I've told this story before in this subreddit. Please fill my inbox now with comments about how much of an butthole I was in 2004. I need a good laugh. Frick him. This actually just happened on Tuesday. So on Monday some girl in my school died and a bunch of people from the upcoming senior class were invited to a group chat. People were consoling each other and more specifically her twin sister. Some dude decided he wanted to be an edgelord and sent the advanced warfare scene with the press F to pay respects and photoshopped her name under it and her picture over the guy in the original pic. I know he is going to heck for sending it, but I laughed a bit, so I guess I am too. I was very young and was in a camping with a group of kids. I peed myself one night, so I got up and pee on the kid next to me too and blamed him next morning. Twice. I once worked a crappy retail job for far too long and part of my duty was to cut glass and then wrapping it for customers. This lady was very condescending and rude the entire time. When I finished she said, "Gosh, didn't your parents teach you how to wrap Christmas presents or anything?" And I looked her dead in the face and said, "We didn't celebrate Christmas at the local orphanage." She insisted on giving me a $20 tip. The other one was while I was grocery shopping and the cashier was being trained by this super loud and bitchy manager who was openly super loud and bitchy to her employees every time I saw her. She wanted to show the new cashier how it was done and tried to guilt me into donating extra money to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. I cut her off halfway through and said, "No thanks, I don't like kids," grabbed my bags and walked away. It shut her up really fast. I borrowed a college book from a guy in a wheelchair, returned the book and went to shake his hand, discovering mid-handshake that the guy was quadriplegic. I last second turned that handshake into a fist bump, exploded it out of habit, then immediately fast walked away never to be seen again. Hey, he probably laughs at you with his friends, so it's all good. My roommates hang out with this really obnoxious group of girls and watch movies loudly until unreasonably late hours. After realizing that asking them to quiet down won't work, I figured out how to turn off the TV from my cell phone. That's not going to heck. That's self-preservation. Going to heck is my dad gaslighting the workers at his local McDonald's where he has breakfast most mornings. He got an app on his phone that will change the volume and channel of the stations in the dining room and look bewildered when they try to figure out what happened, then change it back as soon as they walk away. In high school I went on a 2-month-long vandalism streak. About twice a week I'd go out and smash people's car windows. It ended with me attempting to create a Molotov cocktail. I eventually just lost interest in the destruction. About to board a plane for a 5-hour flight home. Excited not to see any children in line. At last second a woman pulls up with a stroller and I just scream, "Ah, frick. God, there's always a frickin' baby catching the attention of more than a few people." You're not wrong. There's always a frickin' baby. Me heavily pregnant with a healthy single baby got tired of hearing "How many babies do you have?" and there I started saying "2. My one healthy one and the dead one." Stop commenting on the size of pregnant women. Went on a school trip to an assisted living facility in elementary school, where we met with the residents, got taught about what type of care is required, and gave them drawings that the class worked on. Near the end of the visit they gathered all the residents in the lunchroom and we sang for about 20 minutes to a big group of residents. Big claps all around, and then it's time to hand out our drawings. My teacher points to one table and asks me to hand out some drawings. I head up to the table, hand out 2 drawings. They say thank you, but the last person is sitting in a wheelchair with their mouth open not moving much. In my awkward stupor I tried to put the drawing in her hand but she couldn't hold onto it and it dropped to the floor while she just stared at me, because what else could she do? I picked it up, placed it on the table, said sorry and half bolted to where everybody else was. I had no idea what to do and freaked out. That's not the heck part because I was a dumb kid. But in high school as part of my computer club I was a part of we were supposed to go to another assisted living facility and teach older people about computers. The day of the trip instead of going to the club room after school I got on my regular bus and tried to pass it off as forgetting. My parents didn't believe me. It doesn't help that I spent a decent amount of my childhood advising nursing homes assisted living facilities due to having grandparents who had strokes cancer. But I kick myself every day for being so selfish as to not go. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.